Look at this space. It's beautiful. It's quiet, and everyone wants a piece of this. It's West Valley, it's East Valley, and it is wide open spaces. It's pretty romantic, isn't it? But here's what I want to share with you. When you are looking at buying at land, you can be captivated. And I've watched that happen over the last 27 years selling in the Valley. There's a lot of hidden expenses when you want to buy rural property, and we're going to cover those today. First up, septic systems. When you buy a rural piece of property, some of the things for you to consider are there's no sewers out there, there's no city utility, so you're bringing in all of those services. These two concrete circles here are great examples of septic lids. When you buy a rural property, you're going to have to put in a septic system, which is essentially an on-site sewer system, right? So there's two different kinds, and one is a lot more expensive than the other. The first one is going to be a traditional drainage system. So these two lids are chambers for the septic system. And then there's these long pipes that run out, and it's a gravity flow where all the waste will go and then drain down into the soil. Here's the catch. Option two is what's called a pressurized system. In the Yakima Valley, we've got a lot of basalt rock, which means it's like hard, and therefore the sewer, the waste, cannot go down into the soil. That's called the pressurized system, and it's a pricey one. Back to a traditional one. They are gravity flow that flow away from the home. They need to be positioned at a minimum 100 feet away from the well. So we don't want any cross-contamination. The cost for this is going to be a perk test. Once they determine that this is good soil and will drain properly, the cost can be $12,000 to $15,000 to get one of these installed. It's going to take a few days. Maintenance is really pretty minimal. If you're not using fragrant detergents or flushing a bunch of paper items down the toilet, etc., then you really can create a very healthy ecosystem within your drain field. But if you start using a lot of heavy laundry detergent and fabric softeners, those are really, really bad for septic systems. Typically, we recommend having them pumped maybe 7 years to 10 years, depending on how many people are living in the home. And then the size that is required for a septic system is determined by the number of bedrooms in a home. Let's talk about the pressurized. Again, in Yakima, we have so much hard pan, we have a lot of basalt rock, and therefore the waste isn't able to drain down into the soil. Because of that, they have to do a pressurized where they're going to physically push the waste down into an area that will absorb the waste and drain. Sometimes you can see that being built out as a mound, so it looks like a giant mound in your backyard. It runs through that and then drains. This is why it costs so much. They've got to do a bunch of soil tests. After they come out and do the perk test, he drops his big old backhoe in there and then bam, he's going to hit a bunch of rock. And then we know we've got to do the pressurized system. That's going to be a different system going out to a drain field. It's going to require a pump, which means I got to bring electricity to the drain field. And the chambers are going to require additional maintenance. It's just a different animal. It can be done. It's just something you need to go in eyes wide open. This could cost you $20,000 to even north of $30,000. It all depends on the size of the tank and the amount of work needed. So septic systems, it can either be in a traditional drain field, gravity flow, or they're going to be a pressurized system. So it's a big swing in what it's going to cost you. And you won't know that until you do a perk test, which would all be an upfront cost that you would want to determine before you even start permitting for a home. There's no water out there when it comes to rural property. There's no city utility. So you're going to have to drill a well. This is a well house. Not all wells, when they come out of the ground, they have a large casing, get covered in a nice house, but a lot of them do. I think this is a great feature. One of the things to know about wells, it's similar to the septic process. You just don't know what the ground is going to be like. It's going to cost you about $60 per foot to bring a well driller out. So if he's hitting caliche or if he's hitting bedrock, it's going to cost more money because it takes so much time. It's important when they come out to look for the best spot to put the well. There's a lot of knowledge that the Department of Ecology has in terms of where the aquifers are and so forth, so that you're not having to go 500, 600 feet for water. They have a pretty good map of what's available out here. But as you know, water is gold in this valley. We are an arid temperature and we really rely on mountain snow dump and snowpack to really bring water into the valley. We've had our share of troubles with wells, so it's not so easy anymore. You're going to need to make application with Yakima County and then with the health department, and likely bring in Department of Ecology as well. So the good old days of just drilling a well and dropping a pump in and drawing water, those days are over. The process is much more sophisticated. You can anticipate paying $20,000 plus for a well. Here's the advantage of the well. It's in a big initial expense, just like it is with the septic system. But once it's in, the cost to use is very, very nominal. When it comes to a well, like this well house here, there's a pressure tank in there, and it's helping to regulate the pressure from the pump of the water coming up and out of the ground. So it's really the electricity to run that. It could cost you maybe $15 a month to run that pump. It's very inexpensive. So once you tap into that great big aquifer and you're able to draw up the most beautiful water, it doesn't cost you a lot of money to maintain. There's some other costs that a lot of people would never even consider. Let's start with insurance. It used to be very easy to get homeowners insurance, but now with all the fires, it's really become expensive. In fact, there are fewer and fewer carriers that are willing to take on properties in our valley and certainly rural properties that could be at fire risk. I want to give you an example of a property that I sold just out Highway 12 on your way up to the pass. The previous years, it had some pretty good fires surrounding this home. Even though this home had a full sprinkler system in the yard, off the roof, it was well protected. The fact that it had fires nearby surrounding them, the premium cost was $21,000 a year. That buyer was in shock. These are things we could never anticipated. And one of the reasons why it didn't come up prior to when we're getting ready to close on the transaction is the previous owner had lived there for decades and just kept paying on his premium, which is only at $6,000 a year. It was nearly 3 times as much money. And that's because of the fire risk that we're experiencing here in the Northwest, and in particular here in the Valley. I have another example of another property that is out west. It's not even that far out of town. It's got good clearance all the way around the house. They have water that they can draw from to really help mitigate in the event fire can close. It's still not a guarantee that we're able to get them insurance. If they're able to step into the current owner, because this particular property has a home on it, if they can step into that owner's policy, we might have a chance. And that's with Safeco. And Safeco does insure quite a bit of these larger properties here across the valley. It's another big expense that you wouldn't even put on your radar when you're going to look at rural property. And I just want to be sure that you get the inside scoop. Make that call early. Honestly, I'd make it before you started drilling a well or building out a septic system, because if it's going to cost you 20 grand a year to insure your home that you haven't even started building yet, that's a big expense that you're going to want to know. Out here in rural Yakima, that means you're probably going to be driving on a gravel road to get to your home. Just so you know, Yakima County is not going to maintain that road. And you're likely, if you have neighbors, you're going to need what's called a road maintenance agreement. And that means everyone shares in the cost for maintaining that road. It's an added expense and something that you need to consider. It's not only getting the road in, it's graveling it, maintaining it. It will get potholes. You know, we have weather here. So it's just really important to be considering all of that. And if a road maintenance agreement does not exist now, you would want to get that set up in advance. So how you would want to go about that is to contact an attorney. I'll tell you, most of these documents are pretty boilerplate. You would just add in the individual parcel numbers, who's going to be responsible. Because here's the thing, if you're at the very end of the lane versus somebody at the beginning of the lane, what portion are you going to pay versus the person up here? Is it going to be an equal share? I mean, these are all things to really think about and plan for. And a really good land use attorney is going to help you with that. I can make that recommendation. I got some great people here in the Valley. With so many people working from home, I know internet is really important. And you'd be surprised with the bringing on of Starlink, it is really doing an exceptional job of serving the Yakima Valley in large rural areas. Before, they had satellite, which was super slow. It might as well have been dial-up. And we have another company called Washington Broadband, and they also serve rural areas here in Yakima County. So there are two options. My experience is so far that Starlink is still much more fast and more reliable than Washington Broadband, but honestly, they're both really good choices for you. I know high speed is not only important for work, but for gaming, streaming, all the fun things that technology brings today. These are another thing that you need to consider when you're looking at property. What's available? Because I know you're watching TV and you're watching your devices and you're definitely working from home too. Here's the last one, and the one that not everyone wants to talk about. But when you move into a rural area, you're not moving in all by yourself. You are landing in nature. And what that means is critters. We have raccoons, we have cougars, we have elk, we have deer, we have skunks, we have rats, we have mice, we have woodpeckers. Nature is all around us. It's another thing to consider. You've got to be comfortable with it. I forgot to mention the snakes. We have bull snakes, rattlesnakes. They will be your neighbors. They will live around you. So it's important that you're comfortable with that. There's certainly plenty of things you can do. You're definitely going to put a fence around your garden because the deer and elk would be more than happy to have a smorgasbord from your garden. But it's important for you to consider those things. And it'll be important to consider those things and incorporate it into the design of your home. I'm seeing more and more where people are putting metal siding on the upper end of their home and underneath in the eaves to keep the woodpeckers out. They're very active here and they are a son of a gun to get rid of. So it's really important to be thinking of these different things. How can I keep my home safe from intruders, critters, and maintain the quality of my home? I've shared in some recent videos our issues with mice and rats. We are an ag community. So if you're looking at a rural property and you've got orchards nearby or you've got big warehouses nearby storing fruit, you're going to have those little varmin and you need to be prepared for them. It's so important that any part of the home that they are not able to get inside, their number one point of entry is a crawl space vent. They make a way to get that sucker to pull back and sneak in. They can get into the tiniest of spaces. So I just want to be sure you're thinking about all these things while you get to enjoy incredible views like the one behind me and rolling hills and privacy and quiet. There's so many different parts when you are considering building home in a rural setting. And I want to be sure you're well informed. And I can list a whole bunch of resources for you from Yakima County all the way to Department of Ecology, Department of Health, architects, who's going to be your engineer for the septic system and wells, well drilling companies. I have a whole depth of a Rolodex of information for you to make sure that you are well informed before you start pouring a single foundation. Building a home in the Yakima Valley is a big dream for so many people. I mean, our setting, the rolling hills, the orchards, the basalt walls, it's spectacular. I know it, but I want you to be informed. These are all things you need to consider, not only because you might want to build, but if you're looking to buy a rural property, the same rules apply. You're going to want to know all the maintenance that's required of these systems, the age of those systems, looking out for critters, making sure you can get a homeowner's insurance policy. So many pieces. I'm here to help you out. Be sure to reach out, DM me, and I'll be sure to get back to you on the best resources.